Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Terry Chambers, and I'm president of your organization. I want to thank you all for joining us today. We are going to share some information for new PSRs just to make sure that you're coming in with like feeling good and confident about your understanding of your role, the role of the organization, and what this adventure will be all about. So I'm going to pause here and have the rest of the panelists introduce themselves, and then we're going to move right into our presentation.
Hi, everyone. This is Monica Byrne-Jimenez. I'm the Executive Director of UCEA and glad to have an opportunity to talk with you before we get to convention.
This is Gerardo Lopez. I am on the Executive Committee. I'm also the President-elect.
Hi, I'm Shanika Williams. I'm on the Executive Committee. Actually, this is my first full year on, so I'm glad to help you out today.
Hi, this is Angela Welton. My nickname is AJ. I'm an associate professor at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. And this is my first year as an executive committee member. So welcome.
Hey, for both Shanika and AJ. All right, Stephanie, if you could advance to the next slide. So just to keep us all on task and focused, we have this agenda. We're going to share some information with you, but at the end of the PowerPoint, we'll have opportunity for a little bit of question and answer. There's also a little chat function on the side of your computer. I'm motioning as if you can see mine, but there's a little area you can type a question, and we'll be watching that. But we're going to give you, to begin, an overview of UCEA, some of the information that will be useful to you about being a PSR. Since we have you, we'll give you an update on our host search for a new home for UCEA, talk about some of our UCEA initiatives, give you some information about the Plenum that's coming up in November right before the convention, and then the Q&A that I mentioned. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Monica to talk a little bit about our organizational structure.
Can we go to the next slide?
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. So just a little bit of history about UCEA. We were founded in 1954, and we are trying currently to find out who the original members of UCEA were. Right now we've got 12, so it's exciting to know who our original members are. Since then, clearly we have grown tremendously. We're over 100 member institutions now, and we continue to grow. So we thought it would be a good thing for you to know, to sort of get a sense of the organization and how it works. So at the center, or sort of the top of this, is me as the executive director. And part of my role is to lead the headquarters and the headquarters staff. The headquarters staff is basically the people that you're seeing at the bottom there. We have an administrative assistant. We have 2 project managers, one, Marcy Reedy, who is in charge of all of our policy work, and Carl Gildner, who you probably recognize his name. You might recognize both of their names because of all the information that comes out from headquarters regarding convention and other issues that we are working on. Our executive administrative assistant right now is Stephanie McGuire, and you may recognize her name as well, since she sends out a lot of the information particular to the Plenum and the PSRs. We have a postdoc fellow, Davis Clement, who is finishing up 2 years here. And then we have a series of graduate students and 1 undergraduate fellow who are pretty much, and all that layer there are sort of the backbone of UCEA. Above that and to the left, you'll see that we have an executive associate director. That is Sarah Dexter. In the past, it was Pamela Tucker, but now it's Sarah Dexter. And again, you may recognize her name from information that goes out regarding membership, invoices, things like that. If you're looking at me, the executive director person to the right is the executive committee, and you've seen several of those members speak to you so far. It's a 9-member body that is really the governing body of UCEA, and those people are elected from, if you look to the left, the Plenum, which is 1 representative from each member institution. About every year we have 1/3 of the Plenum rotate out because it is a 3-year commitment that we ask. And so every year we have about 30% of our plenum new, which is why we have these orientations. The only people yet, just to talk briefly about them, are the associate program directors. We have about 6 program directors that work on anything from international initiatives all the way to policy initiatives and the superintendency and social justice, and there are a few others. Publications is another one, and then the centers. And so all of those people, sort of from the executive associate level up, really constitute the leadership of UCEA. We can go to the next slide.
So who we are, as Monica just explained, we are comprised of 103 member institutions that have a shared vision, shared goals, and shared values around educational administration and leadership. Next slide, please. In terms of the members, UCEA is a consortium of over 100 research and doctoral granting institutions that advance the preparation and practice of educational leaders. And we do this for the benefit of schools and children at large. Currently, UCEA has a growing international membership interest, and we have MOUs with related international educational leadership networks. So as Monica explained earlier, we started off very small, and now we have over approximately 103 member institutions with growing interest around the globe. So the work that we do and the members that we all have this larger vision of what ed leadership might look like increasingly around the world. Next slide. In terms of the vision, what is it that UCEA sees as moving forward, and what is the vision of what it is that we want to do? We are a community of scholars committed to the improvement of leadership and policy that supports the learning and development of all children. And in that, we actively initiate and lead ed reform efforts through high quality research and preparation programs. So some of you probably have seen some of the research briefs, some of the handbooks and other publications that have come out under the auspices of UCEA. We also try to put out guiding principles for member institutions in their preparation programs. So UCEA institutions work collaboratively with schools and educational agencies to positively influence local, state, and national ed policy. So while we have the leadership arm of the work that we do, we also try to inform ed policy around leadership preparation. So UCEA constantly questions and reevaluates its practices and beliefs to ensure that we're being effective and we're remaining relevant.
Hi, this is AJ. I'm sure you will hear some overlap in terms of talking about the values with the vision that Shanika just went over. And so in terms of our values as an organization, we value the learning and social development for all children, especially through an equity and social justice lens. Also, in terms of our values, we value contributions of educational leaders to the success of all children. So our organization is very much values preparing leaders and helping all its member institutions in the preparation of educational leaders. Also, the systematic inquiry piece, Shanika previously mentioned research. And so UCA is very much into the inquiry and doing research that is relevant, integral, and essential to the success of children's schools and school leaders. We do a number of activities. As a PSR member, you'll be participating in a number of inquiry types of activities at the plenum session meetings. Also, you'll be asked to do a number of surveys to help us understand, what is going on in your leadership preparation programs. That are the surveys that are sponsored by UCEA. So UCEA puts out a lot of research, like Shanika said before, that helps us better help and improve your leadership preparation programs and help us understand trends in terms of leadership preparation. And with that said, we are also focused on quality and excellence in the preparation of school leaders and professors. And so that is done in collaboration with schools and other education service agencies and professional organizations. UCEA is a national leader in leadership preparation and advocacy for leadership preparation and policy development. So educational policy that positively supports learning and the development of all children. We also support and value a professional community, collegiality, and respect for diverse perspectives. And as I said before, diverse, equity, and social justice in all educational organizations. Could you please advance the slide? And in terms of our goals, I hope you've had the opportunity to take a look at the number of reports and research that UCEA has to offer you. So we try to promote and sponsor and disseminate research on the essential problems of schooling and leadership practice. For example, UCEA was instrumental in the revamping of the National Educational Leadership Preparation Standards. And so with that being said, one of our goals is to improve the preparation and professional development of educational leaders and professors, and then positively influence local, state, and national educational policy.
All right, we can advance the slide. I'm going to be talking a little bit about the PSR, the roles and responsibilities of the PSRs. And there are three primary responsibilities, as you can see through the little illustration there. They're all kind of interconnected. One's the legal role, one is the linkage role, and one is the leadership role. And I think that when we think about the legal role, it's important for us to kind of think about the fact that we are a 501c3 organization, and so there are certain legal things certain things that we have to do that are legally required of us as an organization. But I would also kind of broaden the concept of legal to really think of us as a kind of governance and the governance structure of the governance role of the PSR. So if we can advance the slide, and we can talk about that first role, the legal role. As a PSR, one of the things that you do is you are involved in elections. We have to have elections per our bylaws, and you are responsible for electing not only the individuals who will go on and serve on the executive committee, but then folks from the executive committee will also there will also be a slate to go on to be president of the organization, and you all will have a say in who becomes the next president of our organization. There, as I mentioned, we also have a set of bylaws, and the bylaws really provide everything from our own governance and how our organization runs, the committees that stand on there, the journals that we run. There's a lot of bylaws that we have, but you all are responsible for supporting that and making sure that we uphold our bylaws. And there are also financial and fiduciary approvals that are required by the Plenum reps that you all have to approve as our members of our organization. So we do have an annual budget. We present the annual budget every year at the Plenum session, at the Plenum meeting at UCEA. You all get a chance to see it, approve it, and we also give you kind of a fiscal picture of our organization on an annual basis. Then the other kind of portion that you do in terms of this legal responsibility is membership. Membership, as folks have mentioned, we've grown to 103 institutions, and you all, it's by and large, how do they become members? You all vote them in as plenum members. And if there's any kind of criteria to that membership criteria, say we want to change who is a member, or what are the criteria or the rules that we're seeing to for folks to become member institutions, we have those discussions, and we can change our bylaws accordingly. And so there is kind of a real kind of tight-knit role, legal role, that the plenum member plays in making sure that our organization functions smoothly. Next slide, please. The other role is a linkage role, and that linkage role really kind of has a lot to do with the role that you play as a representative of your institution to UCEA. And because you're representing your institution, you need to be in conversation with your program faculty. You need to provide information from UCEA to your the rest of the faculty, as well as your graduate students, in terms of what is discussed. But you also should be vetting with them and having conversations with them about certain issues or initiatives that are coming down the pike, and so that you can be able to weigh in accordingly and cast your vote accordingly, so that it represents the constituency, the broader constituency of your organization. And that's an important kind of linkage role in which you play in conveying information back and forth from UCEA to your institution, from your institution back to UCEA. And that also requires having constant communication with your chair, with your dean, with your provost, as well as external partners. So whether those external partners are at the school district or in the State Department of Ed, or policy constituents, etc., you are representing your institution on all voting matters. So it's always important to kind of to communicate the work that we're doing to the larger body, but also be able to get information when it's relevant and pertinent to voting issues, so that you can represent that departmental input at UCEA. Next slide, please. Lastly, there's a leadership role, and that leadership responsibility really is critical, and one that's not really emphasized a lot, but it is an important role that we need to highlight, because there are so many different initiatives that take place in UCEA related to program improvement or professional learning or different kinds of networks, etc. And it's important for you to know the work that we're doing in UCEA, communicate that to your individual members, communicate that to part of your linkage role, but also be a leader in that regard. Be a leader, stepping up to the plate and representing the voice of UCEA in a variety of different spaces. We conduct a variety of different data gathering initiatives, like threat analyses or the Inspire surveys. You should be taking a leadership role about that, and communicating not only what we do, but communicating to your state, to other state institutions, what is it that of the work that we're doing within UCEA, so that they can improve accordingly as well. You as a PSR really are representing the best of UCEA, and really it is and the work of UCEA, and really it is a way for you to showcase the work that we're doing, but also it as an organization, but the work that you're also doing as your university in contributing to this larger conversation of program improvement and best practices in the field.
Monica, I think this one's you.
Sorry, my apologies.
Oh,
so I think we've all been PSRs, in our experiences with UCEA, and I think some of the things that we wanted to share with you are around how to make the most of the experience. Oh, we need to go back for just a second. Thank you. As I mentioned before, we do generally ask for a 3-year commitment, partly because that's about as long as it takes to get up to speed with everything that UCEA is doing and to really get a sense of the direction that the organization is going in, and how it relates to the work that you do at your home institution. We have several initiatives going on. Some of them we'll talk in a little bit, but there are always opportunities, formal and informal, for PSRs to be participating in or leading in initiatives, directions that UCEA takes. We'll talk a little bit about this at the plenum, but we began an appreciative inquiry process about 5 years ago now. And from that process that we engaged with at the plenum level, there have been several organizational initiatives that have occurred and that continue to happen within the organization. So there are opportunities like that for individual involvement and for program involvement. There's always opportunities, and I think we've touched on these in the previous slides around how to have access to and understand the different outlets for publication and for research that are happening within the organization and across member institutions. Opportunities to be sort of in the ground level almost of work that's happening at the national level. AJ talked about how UCEA was an important voice around the preparation standards for ed leadership, and we had members of the EC on that body as well as the executive director at the time. There's also opportunities to do service across the organization. Again, the clearer the sense of the organization that you have as a plenum member, the clearer the sense of opportunities that are available to you as plenum members. And oftentimes, because the executive committee will come to the plenum with an idea or with an initiative, and then we look to the plenum to help us not just refine that initiative, but then also to participate in it. Lastly, and very practically, being a plenum rep for 3 or more years is national service. It's also, local college and program service, and is an important part of your promotion and tenure package. Go to the next slide. Thank you. So hopefully by now you have all heard or know that we are in the process of looking for a new host institution. And I say hopefully because we've tried to be we've tried to communicate along the way. We've tried to be transparent about the process as we go on. So hopefully, crossing my fingers here, you've heard about the host search. I think one of the things that's really important about that is that unlike other professional organizations, it's a part of our culture as an organization that we be housed in one of our member institutions. I think it's important for us as a headquarters to be located in one of our member institutions to make sure we stay in touch with what's happening at the programmatic level. And then as executive director personally, to be in touch with graduate students, to be in touch with local policymakers, again, to make sure that we are grounded in the work of practitioners, both in the field as well as in academia, that informs our work. So our process of looking for a host institution this year began early last year, when we realized we would have to be looking for a new host institution. We have been here at UVA for 8 years. It's been a wonderful 8 years, and it's been a great partnership. And now it's time to move on to another institution. So we developed, we've looked for institutions before. So we pulled out the RFP and brushed it off, and then sent that far and wide in the field to our members as a beginning step. We engaged in significant amounts of outreach during AERA in the spring. We had hours, we had sort of office hours, so to speak, every day while we were at AERA for members who might be interested in hosting UCEA to come and come to an open Q&A. We also had several webinars in the late spring, early summer regarding, and again, inviting people who might be interested in hosting UCEA to have a conversation with us about what it takes to host UCEA. The final proposals were due at the end of July, and at that point we had, previous to that, we had invited an external committee of past presidents, past members of host institutions that have participated in UCEA, associate directors, former graduate students, a very robust group of external committee members to review the proposals that were submitted at the end of July. And just in sort of an aside here, an important point I want to make sure that nobody misses. At that point, we became actually earlier on in the process of doing the RFP, we became aware that Michigan State University was going to be submitting a proposal for hosting UCEA. We have members of MSU's faculty on our executive committee. And so at that point, Tara and Gerardo really have recused themselves from having to do anything with the process from that point forward. So they were obviously aware of the big picture, but weren't aware of any of the details that were going on. So after, once all the programs submitted their proposals, we went to the external committee for a preliminary review. We have a fairly robust list of criteria, everything from faculty capacity to number of graduate students that each of the proposals was scored on. All of that data was submitted to the executive committee, the subgroup of the executive committee that was looking at the hosting proposals. And again, we had a very extensive conversation, both from our own analysis of the proposals as well as the external review committees, and came up with 3 finalists. And those 3 finalists, again, were communicated to the membership as a way to make sure that everyone knew what was happening as it was going along. Our 3 finalists were University of Illinois, Chicago, University of Houston, and Michigan State University. So right now we are in the process of doing site visits to all of those 3 institutions. The next conversation, an assessment and evaluation of the reports that are generated from those site visits. And again, looking at the data from the external committee, looking at our previous conversation and assessment of those proposals. The members of the EC will be having further discussion about that, the sort of, late fall, early winter, with the hope of selecting a new host by early spring as possible. And then the final piece of the host institution search is to actually make the transition from University of Virginia to our new host institution. That will be, June, July of 2020, with the hope that by July 1, we are well settled into our new host institution. I'm going to go through these next few slides at a brisk clip because some of them have already been talked about, and I want to make sure we leave some time for questions and answers at the end. UCEA, as most of you probably know already, has a deep well of resources. Everything from our journals. We have 3 of the premier journals in our field that are associated with UCEA. We have a series of publications. We have knowledge briefs that go out, policy briefs that go out. So we're constantly in the process of generating research as well as disseminating research from our member institutions. We also have several web-based resources that are available. As you go into the UCA website and get beyond sort of a login, you'll find that there's an online community that's available for members to use and connect with each other. We have teaching and learning modules that are also web-based that are available to everybody. I think Boshanique and AJ talked about this before, and Gerardo, we have several online tools that are specifically designed to help programs engage in constant continuous improvement. The Inspire survey is obviously something that each of our programs does every other year, I believe, in order to collect data on their own program. We also have several criteria and rubrics and frameworks for which to undergo continuous improvement at the programmatic level. And again, we have several sort of policy related publications and initiatives that happen throughout the year. We have a set of associate directors that guide and work with headquarters to really engage in understanding policy both at the federal and the state level regarding specifically leadership and educational leadership across states. Go to the next slide. So again, here you'll see a couple of different initiatives that we are currently engaged in, and I'll just want to point out a few of them. One of them is the state ESSA plan and implementation analysis. When states began to develop their ESSA plans and submit them to the federal government, we actually collected all of those ESSA plans and did a content analysis regarding how they are including, to what degree they are including, and whether or not they are including school education leadership at all in those plans. 9 of those states kind of rose to the top because they had specific language and effort around supporting educational leadership. So we did that phase 1 of analysis of the ESSA plans. Our next analysis of the ESSA plans is actually about implementation. So going back to those 9 states in particular, but asking all of the states about how they're able to implement their plans, again, specifically about educational and school and district leadership. So that's a big effort that we're engaged, that we have been engaged in, we will continue to engage in. Both the Wallace Foundation and the Program Design Network, what we call the PDNs, are really different ways of supporting the design of programs in order to strengthen principal preparation. And so those have both been both initiatives have been going on for quite a while now. And I think the other one I want to point out is around the work that we've done with graduate students. Our initiative in support of graduate students has grown tremendously in the past few years. Everything from the development of the Graduate Student Council, and then predating the Graduate Student Council, the Jackson Scholars Network, and then both of those doing both the Jackson Scholars and the Graduate Student Council having important opportunities during convention for research development, and mentoring. So the graduate student effort has been a very important one, and we really encourage our plenum reps to work with their programs to think about how to support their graduate students to be able to participate in these initiatives. Next slide, please. So of course, pre-convention, we have the Plenum, which is our annual meeting for all the representatives of UCEA member institutions. I'm not sure if, Tara, do you want to go over this quickly?
Sure. So, this will be your first time coming for the Plenum. And so we try to set this up to be as convenient as possible. We have a lot of business to take care of, and we're always working to figure out ways to make your in-person time as engaging and substantive as possible. So we will have some things headed out your way ahead of time that you're going to want to pay attention to. But in terms of your in-person arrival, we're going to start around 11:30 on Wednesday the 20th. If you live in a place where you can get there that day, you can certainly do that. Some of you will need to arrive the night before in order to get there by 11:30. Either is fine with us, as long as you can get there by 11:30. We plan to wrap up around 5:30 that day, and then we'll reconvene early Thursday morning because we need to finish in time to make it over to the awards luncheon. That usually happens right after the plenum finishes on Thursday afternoon. At least I think that's not. Anyway, the convention convenes right after we finish our business in the morning. So arrive 11:30 on Wednesday and plan to be finished around 11:30 on Thursday morning. We will have lunch for you on Wednesday also. That will be included, so plan on that. We'll send you an agenda ahead of time. That will include some web-based work that you'll need to do so that we can get right to business when we start together. There'll be a number of things on our agenda that we'll talk about. So you'll have some headquarters updates. We'll do EC elections, and that will be a big part of what we do. We have a nominating committee that's been working really hard, and actually back to Monica's point about your service on the plenum, one of the key ways that we get an EC together is through service on as a plenum representative, but it becomes increasingly difficult to find candidates who fit our bylaw requirements, which is that you are a person who has served as a PSR for 3 years in the last 6 years. When a lot of institutions have turnover in that PSR role, people don't have the 3 years in the last 6 years experience, and a host of other things. So it really is, let me just put a plug in for how important it is for you to, in that linkage role, to communicate back to your institutions the importance of having some stability in that PSR role over time. We want our EC to reflect our member organizations, and we can only do that when our member organizations send us PSRs. So just a quick plug about that. But we've got a great slate of candidates coming forward for the 3 EC positions that are going to be open this year. We'll be sending out additional information for that, as well as the election of a new president. And again, Monica and I are working really hard to make our time together in person very meaningful and worth it. So be excited. Monica, anything else you want to add on that slide?
Yeah, the only other, just 2 other quick points. One is that we do have a plenum reception afterwards on Wednesday evening. And so it's a great opportunity. We bring together all the plenum members, and we also bring the graduate students that are attending the Graduate Student Summit. So it's a really big kind of celebratory and a nice way to start off our convention experience. The other thing about elections is that you will be getting information about the people who have agreed to serve or to be on the slate. We do all of that, and I think Tara was alluding to web-based, and so you will be getting links to those interviews, and it's actually really important that you listen to those interviews before you actually vote for our new EC members.
Yep. The last thing that I forgot, that I forgot to say is that as a new PSR, I know we are nailing you with a lot of information here. And even with that, there's a lot of questions that you're going to have, some of which we'll be able to answer this afternoon. But we assign new plenum representatives, a plenum partner, a senior PSR who has been a PSR for a while, who has got a sense of things. And so while you are always free to reach out to any of us who are on this call or any of the EC members, this is another person that you can get and just put in your Rolodex as a person to reach out to. And so we'll be in contact with you also about who your plenum partner, who that senior person is. Sorry, Monica, I cut you off.
No, that's absolutely, yep. Plenum partners, great.
Okay. Next slide, Stephanie. So we're to the point now where we are going to open up for questions. I don't know if there's a way for us to turn on everybody's microphone. Stephanie, is that possible for us to do that? Rather than have people have to type their questions. And I've been trying to follow here. I don't see any questions that have been posed in the chat.
Hold on. I am unmuting as we speak. Okay, everyone should be unmuted.
Ooh, hey everybody. Okay, if you have a question, I guess just go ahead and holler, because I can't even follow who is on the webinar actually. So if you just go ahead and, go ahead and let us know what your questions or clarification, anything that you're kind of thinking about, please let us know.
Wait time.
Because we've been so thorough.
Or it's too much to process all at once.
Yeah, that too.
Nope.
Okay. Well, again, this is an opportunity to ask questions, but not your only opportunity to ask questions. Stephanie, if you can go to the next slide. If something occurs to you, a question emerges after we get off this call, or you have a question that is maybe more appropriate for just a direct email to one of us rather than to raise here in the open call, please take a look at these email addresses. Any of us on the call, but I just hinted to me and Gerardo and Monica as folks you can directly follow up to just easily. But again, you'll be assigned a Plenum partner. That's another appropriate person to reach out to. I know a lot of people send out questions to Stephanie. That's also appropriate. Just reach out where you need to reach out. And if that's not the right person, we are really good. I will speak for myself. I am really good about saying, you know what? I don't know, but Monica knows or Stephanie knows. Someone always knows. And I usually know who knows. So even if I'm not going to be able to help you, I can get you to the help. And I think most of us are in that situation. Okay, any closing thoughts from any of our panelists, or also opportunity for late breaking questions?
No, I mean, I think I appreciate you all taking time out of your schedules, to come and not just your service to UCEA, but to listen in on this webinar. I think we can make the PowerPoint available to everybody so that you've got that cheat sheet for when you get ready to travel in November.
Monica?
Yes.
The PowerPoint is available just above. It's in this box just above. So you might want to let the new people know they can probably download that and hang on to it. If they have questions, they can refer to it.
Okay. Thanks, Karen.
Sure.
Great. Oh, Karen, I didn't know that you were on the call. Do you want to? She chaired our nominating committee. Is there anything that you want to say about the process or any?
What I would like to just share, and I will share when I give the committee report, is exactly what Monica expressed. It's really important that people step up when they're asked to serve, and we realize that it's a high service responsibility, but it's very much needed, and you see it's integral to the continued operations of UCEA. So I will share, even as we reached out to people, we're always looking for people who are dedicated to, one, the organization, and admin broadly. So if you're ever asked, please be willing to try it.
Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing the committee. That was important work. Thank you so much.
Oh, happy to do so. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, everyone. Well, thanks for sharing your Monday afternoon with us. We'll let you go back to your lives. We yield 13 more minutes, and I always say when I'm yielding extra minutes that you have to go and do something for yourself with those extra minutes, because we owned your time for an hour, which means you have nothing else on your calendar, which means you can go walk, you can stretch, you can go get a tea, something, but take these 13 minutes to do something for yourself.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Yes.
Bye.